it might do it. Turn it down some. Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. Today's date is December the 27th in the year of our Lord, 2023. First of all, we'd like to start out by saying happy holidays to each and all. We hope that the holidays have been a joyous occasion, a time to gather with family, remembering the true meaning of the season, as far as the prophet Emmanuel is concerned. And, we don't want to turn it into doom and gloom. This will be one of our final airings for the year 2023. And as always, in wishing you a joyous occasion on this, Christmas season, after, all the dust settles, the holiday hula and hoorah and et cetera, we're right back into our everyday lives when it comes to determining governorship over one's life, over one's, daily well-being here in America. And, in closing the year, we have to take a look back and, look at the year for what it is, for what it was. We're staunchly Democrat here at Soluble, but we're willing to give our Republican colleagues the benefit of the doubt when it calls for it, as it relates to, what's best for the direction of the country. Now, we've stated off and on here on a regular basis this year that, we're 247 years in to this young republic. 247 years. Now, as it relates to a millennium, we're not even a quarter of the way there, technically. So, we're still in our infancy stage. And one of the most pivotal questions that, we're going to leave our audience with here closing out the year 2023, at this point in time in our history as a country, in America, at 247 years in, where do we go from here? We see that, our colleagues on the right reached out and embraced, a MAGA movement that at best put the country at a standstill, if not moving it back somewhat, as it relates to social order, law and order, political etiquette, what it means to be presidential in the Oval Office. We saw something that was, very unprecedented during the last Republican administration. So we would ask you, our viewers to take a moment to reflect, going into a new calendar year, an election year, and let's look at it for what it is. Now, we've stated on occasion that the perception is that the commander-in-chief is too old. And, our position here at Soluble is, when it comes to actually getting the job done, riding the ship that we call American democracy after a worldwide pandemic. We think, the president has done a great job in doing what he thinks is best to move America forward. Now, at the beginning of the year till now, the end. At the beginning, we had questions about inflation. Grocery prices were up. Foreign policy. The commander-in-chief was doing a good job with foreign policy, but the ups and downs of the past year, we think he managed it well, in, trying to find stopgap measures for Russia's aggression, sitting down and having a talk with, the president of the People's Republic of China, Grocery prices are down, gas prices are down, prices for a lot of goods and services are down. And so with the Feds doing what they have done as far as adjusting the interest rate, and tinkering with the interest rate, whether they raise it a little bit, whether they lowered it or what have you. The job has been a job well done. Now, is there room for improvement? Always. There's always room for improvement in a democracy. There's always places and times where we find that we can, do more, do better. And, from a democratic position, that should be our position in itself, that, there's always room for improvement. And so, to my fellow Democrats, and, especially this 90 something plus percentile that I'm constantly reaching out to, this 90 something percentile of an election block, of African American voters. Now, we've thrown our weight for the most part behind the Democratic Party as African American voters. And, you're here on occasion or, in Republican circles on a regular basis to say, what is the Democratic Party doing for you? And we want to stress and emphasize, if you will, going forward into the new calendar year and to this upcoming election year, to that 90 something plus percentile, it shouldn't be a question of what are the Democrats doing for us as African American voters. The question should be, what are we doing for ourselves? I mean, we waited 400 plus years, and we are throwing the vast majority of our voting power behind Democratic candidates. And so, what happens after the dust settles? The votes have been counted and the dust settles. Now, for one, with the Democratic Party, as I said, it's not about what the Democrats can do for us as a voting bloc. We should be looking in the mirror and starting with the person in the mirror, asking what can we do for ourselves? Because when it comes to the two parties, Democrat and Republican, you have seats at the table with a voice. And that's real important to know. Seats at the table with a voice. You don't see this from our colleagues on the right, from this party on the right. You have seats at the table, but where is the voice? The voice of reason. The voice of a different path or a different idea. Our position here at Soluble is that, in these Republican circles and in these Republican voting blocks, is pretty much, go along with the party line or with whatever the direction the party is going. Whether it's MAGA, whether it's MAGA 1, 2, what have you. And when you look on the contrary at the Democratic Party, we feel like you have those seats and a voice. I mean, it's evident. You have the squad. You have the gavel being passed on next in line after Speaker Pelosi to, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. So you have those seats at the table and you have a voice. And, we're looking. We're being very observant here at Soluble. And we don't see where that would-be power apparatus is broken. But it's going to be up to us, the people. Now, more than anything, our colleagues on the right, this party on the right, wants to shatter that voting bloc. They want to diminish it. And so, from ending a year and going into a new year, an election year, we have to take a long look, a careful approach, being very observant to separate the wheat from the chaff between these two parties. Now, if you hear our colleagues on the right talk, you know, inflation is through the roof. The prices at the grocery store, a dozen of eggs is outrageous. The Biden economic policies are bankrupting Americans. And so, you know, if the perception doesn't meet the reality, then we as Democratic voters have to take a long look to say, you know, we're on the verge here. We're on the edge. We're walking the plank. And democracy is hanging in the balance. What you see is what you get here between the two parties. Now, during the midterms, you know, the American people sent Republicans to Washington, D.C. with the majority in the House. What are the results? What have we got from this past year? We came into the year with a marathon voting session just to get a Speaker of the House, only to lose him 8 months later. And chaos has ensued. With this year's majority, you've heard it from some of, you know, the Republicans that are there, that are current office holders, you know, that they've gotten little to nothing accomplished. But chasing shadows, you know, wanting to convince you and me, the American people, that there's a Biden crime family that's threatening Washington, D.C., that's currently lurking in the Oval Office. Needless investigations with little to no legislation to show for this majority. And so, to my Democratic colleagues, you know, it begs the question going into the new year. After all the chaos, you know, after all the resignations, Speaker McCarthy chooses not to run again. Congressman Buck out of Colorado chooses not to run again. George Santos has been expelled for not being forthcoming with, you know, disclosures about, you know, where he's came from, where he's worked at. We're not really sure who the individual is, but nevertheless, you know, Congress has done the right thing in expelling him. Now, we've waited, we've watched, you know, to see what our Republican colleagues on the right side of the aisle have to offer or have had to offer for this calendar year. Bickering, infighting, you know, the former speaker throwing elbows. This doesn't look like, you know, a party that is capable of functioning on behalf of country and or for love of country. Now, you know, the numbers are what they are. The current state of things is what it is. And we have stability. We have a commander-in-chief in Democratic President Joseph R. Biden, who will listen, who will summon a panel of experts or his administration. And, you know, he's all ears. But what we also must, you know, realize and understand going into a new calendar year is, you know, with this power structure that we have, with this powerful voting bloc, you know, we have a chance to make democracy great. We have a chance to make democracy work for each and every individual American by holding on to this 90 something plus percentile of voters. And so, Democrats, the ball is in our court. We have a crucial election coming up. Democracy is on the line. Democracy is on the balance. Truth is on the ballot. How can we, get these two parties to work more together for the sake of the American people? Now, we've seen since the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade, we've seen, in spite of the special elections in Kansas, Ohio, and places where abortion was protected by law, in places where the woman's right to choose by law was protected, we still see Republicans pushing back against the will of the American people. Now, we live in a democracy and in a country where majority rules. And like it or not, weary or not, sick and tired of being sick and tired or not, we have a message to send. And so Republicans are relying on, counting on wearing you down, creating illusions. They're great at fear tactics, false propaganda, slander. Why? And this is what you should ask yourself going into the next calendar year. Why? And our position here at Soluble is that because they can't beat the president on policy. They can't say that President Joe Biden is doing a good job, but we have something better. This simply, puts Americans on the edge of their seat. They're all ears. Because, while we have something good currently in the Oval Office, if our Republican colleagues are being truthful, putting the best interest of America in front, they will give it to us. They will show it. They will present it in some kind of way, this better idea. Now, you have the former president who is the current front runner for the nomination of the Republican Party for president of the United States of America. He's talking about mass deportations. We're a land of immigrants. True that, people need to wait their turn in line and go about it the proper way. And, one of the things that the current president, Joseph R. Biden, has done is to, ask our Border Patrol agents to double down on checking if there is a legitimate asylum claim. And if there's not a legitimate asylum claim, they have to go back and wait their turn. Is that not, a president who is thinking like the melting pot that America is? Is that not fair? Is that not, a great start to the problem? He's reaching out to officials in Mexico. He's reaching out to people in Honduras. Constantly working to stem the flow, to stem the tide. And, it speaks to America's greatness that, we have our neighbors to the south who are, taking these dangerous treks. These long journeys with young children in the cold of night, in the heat of day, trying to get to America. Now, what we should ask ourselves, one of the things we should ask ourselves when it comes to the immigration, situation that we have on the southern border, can it be fixed? What can we do? As I just said, the president is taking a concrete step in dealing with false asylum claims. That's a great start. That's a great start. And so we feel like here at Soluble, once, our fellow human beings who are immigrants, who are trying to enter the country, learn and understand that this is, a new policy put in place that is being enforced, it's going to stem the tide. Because who is going to make that long trek, that long, dangerous journey, knowing that there's no legitimacy to their asylum claim? And so we feel like we have a president who is, crossing his T's, dotting his I's for the sake of doing what's best for the country. Now, to my fellow Democrats, the current situation that we have going on right now in the Middle East, and this is what makes democracy so great. If we don't agree with, or if we feel like America's policy towards Israel, America's policy towards the Palestinians needs fixing, needs changing, needs to be made more fair, there needs to be strict enforcement of said agreements. This is what makes democracy great, because we have these seats at the table. And with the new generation of leaders comes, new policy ideas, new thought. And, as Democrats, if we feel like, it's not right that the Jewish people are taken out of, the persecutional ways of the Germans, or what have you, at the end of World War II. And now, they're put in a place by America and Great Britain, and, the same hell that they were catching from the Germans, they're now inflicting it on the Palestinian people. If we feel like that's not right, we have a voice. This is what I talk about when I say we have seats at the table. Now, if you think that, it's bad now, and we don't agree with the current administration's, approach towards this crisis that's going on in the Middle East. The UN calls for a ceasefire. America vetoes it. But as I said, as far as the Democratic Party is concerned, and to my fellow Democrats out here, you have to realize this is not a time for, disillusion or to back away. You have those seats at the table. They're filled. Those seats at the table in the Democratic Party looks like the true America melting pot. And so, we have students who are protesting, who are massing, to get their voices heard. Our position here at Soluble, if it's bad now in the Middle East, going forward, under Republican leadership, it can only get worse. It can only get worse. And so we have a president in office who will listen. He understands, that Democrats are becoming restless. And, we don't agree with the current state of affairs that's going on in the Middle East. Young Palestinian children seem to be on the front lines. This seems to be a war or a conflict where Palestinian women and children are on the front lines. Now, we know that children cannot carry weapons. We know that women are not first in the fight when it comes to, aiming weapons at the nation of Israel. But yet they're taking the brunt of the casualties. And so, do we run away, stick our heads in the sand? Do we throw our hands up in disgust and, let the dust settle where it may? No, we should not do that. As Democrats, we should make our voices heard, which is, the current state of being. You see students within college students, you see Americans, with opinions on both sides. some pro-Israel, some pro-Palestine. Our position here at Soluble is that, we're dealing with two groups, two nations of people, two nations of human beings. And, we should not stand on the sidelines when either race is being dehumanized, is being slaughtered, is being attacked. Our position is that the two-state solution is what needs to be enforced, not, just to sit down at the negotiating table under the guise of peace talks. This has to end somewhere. Prime Minister Netanyahu, there's no way. There's no way that, he can end this conflict. He'll go up to the podium, he'll get on the mic, and as we've stated before, it's Ariel Sharon all over again. It's Ariel Sharon all over again, with no end to the bloodshed in sight. And so, ending one year and going into another, let's remember the Middle East, because it is definitely on the ballot. But as Democrats, we have to understand that by no means do we have to settle for the current state of affairs. And so, for the sake of the innocent, for the sake of little children, whether they be Palestinian children, whether they be Israeli children, we have to go to the ballot box in this upcoming election year. World peace is on the ballot. Stabilizing America's democracy is on the ballot. So, we ask that you take time to reflect. Here you have two parties. One party is supporting the leading nominee who is under bombardment with indictments. And now this same party is trying to create a situation where the current Democratic president is in the same boat. But it's a fishing expedition. It's a fishing expedition. And for the entire year, with little to no legislation and, this mainstream investigation, how long, and this is a question for my fellow Democrats, common sense, independents, and Republicans, how long, how much more longer do we have to wait for the solid evidence to be presented to us, the American people, so that we can be judge, jury, and voter come this November? If you have the goods, give them to us. But the Republicans will play with it, tinker with it. They want to take it behind closed doors and mold it and manufacture it into a believable lie. We don't want to, go into debate about peaceful politics, ending gridlock in a way that, makes your eggnog taste sour. The brandy is not the same. Our position here at Soluble is always, solution. And so, going into the new year, we have to ask ourselves as Democrats, common sense, independents, and Republicans, is a lie that overrides the truth? Is that what is going to keep democracy turning in a free, fair, and justified way? Is alternative facts going to make us better and stronger as a country? The media doing their job and being attacked as fake news. Where does this get us as a democracy? Does it make us stronger? Does it move us forward? And these are the questions that we should ask, for our young republic. It's one big melting pot. It's good when, you have different voices at the table coming up with common sense solutions for us all. You have Speaker McCarthy, who, is outgoing right now because he chooses not to seek reelection. And, he said here recently, during a press conference or going before his House colleagues or going before his party base in California, and the congressman plainly, pretty much stated, that the Republican Party looks like, the good old boys club when it comes to, and this is the congressman's words, not mine, and I'm not quoting him verbatim here, but basically what he's saying is, look at his party that looks little to none like, the melting pot that America is, versus when you look at the Democratic Party. These are the former speaker's words. Now, these are not our words here at Sawyer. These are Congressman McCarthy's words. And so, from the last Republican administration to now, going into an election year, are we getting something different here in the form of the former president, who is the leading nominee for the Republican Party, or is it more of the same? Is the former president fit for office? Is he qualified to be commander-in-chief of a great country like the United States of America? And this is what we have to ask ourselves, going into the new year. Let us toast. Let us eat, drink, and be merry. But let us at the same time be conscious of the things that are to come. When it comes to, us getting our numbers out and voting in large numbers, when it comes to not showing up and the consequences thereof. Now, as I said, going into 2024, our position here at Soluble is that this 90-something plus percentile voting bloc of African Americans, we're going to have to distinguish ourselves as it relates to the party, as it relates to us, the people, because we have the power in our hands, and it's up to us to use it. And so America is at a point now where if there's a finger to be pointed, a finger of blame, it's no longer for this 90-something plus percentile African American bloc of voters. There's no longer a finger of blame to say, this is racist or this is discriminatory. We have to put that behind us, because now the power is in the hands of we, the people. And so, it's up to us to wake up and smell the coffee. This 90-something plus percentile voting bloc. You're laughed at. You're scorned when you're out, protesting, which we have the right to do in America. We have a right to peaceably assemble for redress of grievances. But you're mocked, you're laughed at by your colleagues on the right, by the Republican Party. When you flip that and you start to go to the polls in large numbers and large voting numbers, they're angry and upset. And this is a heck of an emotional roller coaster swing here. Going from being comical to being extremely upset. And so, we don't feel like you need a multiple choice here or fill in the blanks type of lead me to the right answer. It's all up in your face. The question is, what are we going to do as Democratic voters with the power that we have? It's all up in your face. You're laughed at when you protest, when you peaceably assemble, and you know you're targeted with anger and contempt when you show up at the polls in large numbers to vote. So, as I said, this is not something that where you need multiple choice or fill in the blank to understand and know where your true power lies. Where your true power lies. The power's in the polls. The power's in the polls with seats at the table and with voices in those seats that can bring about more concrete change that levels the playing field and creates a future of equality for all Americans. And so, it's up to us. Power to the people. We show up and vote in large numbers, and we keep America moving forward. There are things that we don't agree with. There are things that we think that should be done different. When you have this majority, when you have this 2/3 majority, and this is what you must understand as Democratic voters. The Republican politicians know what kind of power you possess with this 2/3 majority. This is why January the 6th came about. They don't want you to have that power because they know that it's going to bring powerful change. It's going to bring equality. When we show up, when we vote, when we take those seats at the table and put our voices to work. Just like Caucasian America has been doing since the founding of the country. And the government works for them. And we can do the same. So, take a moment to reflect in this holiday season. Peace on earth, goodwill towards men. But going forward into the new year, we have the power. And so the question is, what are you going to do with it? As Democratic voters, are we going to let Republicans intimidate us into a back seat? Where now we're at a standstill, or at worst, going backwards. Affirmative action has been rolled back. Affirmative action has been rolled back. Voting rights are under attack. And you have the power to change that. Is there a threat? Yes. But the threat can be quelled with a simple majority, with a 2/3 majority. And so the ball is in your court. We have the power as Democrats to calm the waters, if you will, by showing up, and rocking the vote this upcoming election year. Now, the former president has already played the rigged election card. He's already played it. He's overplayed it. There was no evidence then. There is none now. And yet the former president is still chanting that the election was rigged. The election was stolen. And we stated it here before it's soluble. This is one of the things that makes the former president so dangerous, is because he really doesn't understand how the process works. And so, for all intents and purposes, there's a good chance that he feels this way because he's ignorant of how the process works. Further solidifying our point that the president is not qualified to hold this office. Now, Republican voters will be willing to send this man back to Washington, D.C. in all of his uneducatedness, his corruption. But Democrats, we must know that If the former president can't clean up his own house and get his own house in order, that house being the Trump organization. Is there enough smoke here with the cases that's going on in New York as far as his business dealings? Has he cooked the books? Has he inflated the numbers to his advantage and decreased his numbers to his advantage? And if so, will these actions carry over into the Oval Office and begin to affect the American economy? We can look no further than, going back to the last two Republican administrations. Former Republican President George W. Bush and former Republican President Donald J. Trump. There's a trust issue here. There's a feeling of fear and or foreboding that, the former president is not going to come clean. We see what happened with COVID, where he was telling us, the American people, that stay calm, that it's not a big deal. But, in recorded conversations that, are the rights of the American people to listen, it's the property of the American people. In private conversation, the former president is saying that is bad. And so we don't have, forever here. November of 2024 will be here faster than we realize. And we're at a tipping point. We've seen things with the Republican Party that's unprecedented. And, it's not complicated unless you choose to make it complicated. And case in point, once again, we don't see our Republican colleagues where, we're trying to seek a solution. We're hoping for partisanship, working across the aisle to get things done for the American people. The majority rules. And so the majority shouldn't be apologetic. The majority shouldn't, be brainwashed or subject to tune in all the foreign noise that is coming from our colleagues on the right. Now, as I said, coming into the year, from then to now, we're in the new year, but coming into the year, and it's bad to say, but we have our colleagues on the right hoping that inflation will explode and bring down the economy. How does that work? How does that work? And as Democrats, we should not want, anything that a Republican majority or a Republican administration is doing. We shouldn't be cheering for failure here, because this is not the only way that we can win power. We can win power by leveling with the American people, giving them the truth about exactly what's going on. This is where we win power and we hold on. And so, we have to be the bigger party here. We have to be the bigger party. We can, easily let Republicans drag us down into the mud with them. But that wouldn't be, the best thing that we have to offer to the country. That wouldn't be the best thing that we have to offer to the country. So, let's take, a brief moment to look at what's at stake. Our democracy, our way of life is at stake here. Because we've never seen, a president come into office and attack the press in the way that the former president has done. Violate the emoluments clause with little to no regard. Have family members looking at classified documents without a proper security clearance. The former president's son-in-law, if you look back at the beginning of the Trump administration, he couldn't get past a security clearance, but yet he was still privy to top secret information. The former president playing fast and loose with classified documents. And so, it begs the question, do we love this democracy? Do we value it? As Americans, we have to look at the situation on the border. So many people want to be where we're at. So many people are looking for America to continue to be that shiny city on a hill, that beacon of light, where we don't always agree, but we're able to come to the table of humanity and negotiate and debate. And at the end of negotiations and debate, come up with common sense solutions that work for all of America. And in a lot of cases are good for the rest of the world. So everything is out in the open here. Everything is out in the open. And if not, as Democratic voters, then it's our responsibility to bring it out in the open. It doesn't have to be hush hush. Smoke and mirrors. Take it behind closed doors. This prize attack dog that the Republican Party has in Hunter Biden. Hunter has came out and said he wants to testify in public. He wants to testify in public. What could be greater if Hunter Biden is a threat to national security? If Hunter Biden is a clear and present danger to America? What better way to get to the bottom of what's going on than what Hunter has requested? Now, on the contrary, you have our Republican officials in Congress who are, they're insisting that it go behind closed doors. So who has something to hide here? Is it Hunter Biden? Or is it, our colleagues, our office holders, our lawmakers on the right? Who has something to hide here? Hunter has came on the podium. He's named names in Congressman Comer, Congressman Jordan, Congressman Smith, and talked about the fact that they want to destroy his father's presidency. This man has acknowledged that he's had problems in the past. What better can we get as Americans than to have here an American citizen in the form of Hunter Biden, doing the right thing? He's not in denial. He's not in denial. He said that he's had, a sordid past with drug use, doing drugs 24/7. He's acknowledged it. He's not in denial. He's not in denial. He's ready to come clean with the American people. And you would think that, our colleagues on the right would let it be so. And so that we can move on as a country. But no, they don't want him in public for all to see and hear. And so, Democrats, we have to understand that, we have Republican voters out here who will walk over broken glass, who are willing to throw the Constitution under the bus for the sake of re-electing the former president. Now, in the coming year, we'll take it issue by issue, line by line, and try to dissect it as best that we can to be informative and eye-opening here at Soluble. Because, we're not going to be able to solve this partisan bickering, this partisan gridlock. We're not going to be able to solve it if we're not dealing with the truth. And somehow, by rejecting Hunter's request to testify in public. It seems as if, the truth is not important here. He wants to give it to us. You have Republican voters, you've had Republican lawmakers on the right, screaming, pleading, demanding that Hunter come forward. Where is Hunter? Has been the chant, has been the cry from the right. And now here he is. And so, it begs the question, which way is up? But to, my Democratic colleagues, it begs the question, which way is the nearest voting booth? Because as sure as, we're in this season of giving, this season of joy, in celebrating, the life of the prophet, we have, serious work to do. And it's nothing new. There's always been a vote every 2 to 4 years. That's the way this democracy works. That's the way it functions. And so here you have two different men, two different ideologies on what's best for America. We're going to break it down, into stark detail, issue by issue. We've already talked to you, the American people, when it comes to job creation and the two ideals, one Democratic, one Republican. We've talked to you about foreign policy, two ideals, one Democrat, one Republican. If it's not good for America and the American citizens, then we're going to do our best here at Soluble to let you know. We're going to do our best to, give it to you in a matter of fact, factual way, so that, you can make a conscious decision on what's best for the country and for us as, American citizens. Because, it seems as if our colleagues on the right have taken a detour as to, doing things in a way that first and foremost, affects the country in a positive way. And so as we close out this year, here and now in this holiday season, we're asking our Democratic voters, our colleagues, to really pay attention to what's going on. Because, here it is the second time around. And we don't know, what kind of a curveball that the former president may or may not try to throw at the next upcoming election. Now, if you think back to the year 2020, 2, 3, 6 months out, even before the election was held, every other press conference, you had the former president talking about how the election was going to be rigged. Well, deep down in his heart, the former president knew that, his numbers weren't looking good. His advisors were telling him this. Based on the polling, he feared Sleepy Joe Biden, in his own words, in his own name-calling words. He feared Sleepy Joe Biden. And so with his advisors telling him, Mr. President, it's not looking good, when it comes to, your bid for re-election. So what does the former president do? Does he go out on the stump? Does he get back on the stump to make the case for another 4 years? No. The former president comes on the podium and begins to create controversy, sow seeds of discord, create doubt in an election system that's worked for America since the beginning of time. What kind of man with leadership capabilities takes this course of action to create a lie and, rehearse it, rehash it, say it over and over again until the lie becomes the truth? Now, what caused democracy to hold the first time around in 2020 was that when the former president made the case for a rigged election, there was no evidence. And so he looked foolish. And this is what we have to hold near and dear now and protect a system of checks and balances, a judiciary system that is evidence based so that no one, not just the former president, but no one, Democrat or Republican, black or white, male or female, can come forward and just, utter out false accusations and there's no evidence to back it up. It was a great stopgap measure to, keep things in check. And those who were on the fence, who weren't sure if the election was rigged or not, you had to see that once the former president was asked to present his information, his evidence, and there was none, then the educated part of us had to come to terms with the fact that the president was not being truthful and that he was a sore loser. We get it. Anyone who is happy about losing, that is, it calls into question, what kind of person, what kind of level of mediocrity or levels of non-competitiveness that lies within. But unlike most people who, when they lose, they go practice. They hone their skills to get better, to come back again. And so the president had every opportunity to remake the case, to come back out on the stump and make the case for another 4 years. Debates have been held in Republican circles. The former president was a no-show. The indictments are there. The rape allegations are there. The hush money payment allegations are there. The interference in a free and fair election evidence is there. And so, in closing for tonight and, getting ready to enter into a new year, we ask, our Democratic voters, our Democratic colleagues to, educate family, friends, new voters. We have people who couldn't vote the last time around that are of voting age now. And I'll leave you with this final thought, which we've already spoken on, but I'm going to say it one more time. We have to ask ourselves, why can't our colleagues on the right, in the form of Republican politicians, come out and make the case for why they should be in power based on their policies? Based on their policies and their policies alone. We don't have to, ask Republicans to give us a voice of support. We see what's going on. Like I said, the president is having the feds to tinker with interest rates, whether they raise them, whether they lower them. But whatever they're doing is working because inflation is coming down, and it was all of the rage, going into the 2022 midterms, and even beginning with the Biden administration's first 4 years. Although our Republican colleagues knew that we were just coming out of a worldwide pandemic that had caused an economic slowdown worldwide, not just here in America, but worldwide. And here we are almost 4 years later, and slowly but surely, the Biden administration is bringing things back to normal. And there are seats at the table, and those seats can be filled with bodies that have voices. Common sense independence, that 90-something plus percentile block of African American voters that we need to hold on to. And in closing, I said it once, I'm going to say it again. As a block of African American voters, we can no longer afford to ask ourselves, what is the Democratic Party doing for us? The question now is, what are we going to do for ourselves in the Democratic Party? How are we going to take the Democratic Party and make it work for us in leveling the playing field, in creating a system that often functions more often than not in equality with little to no discrimination? We have the power, we the people. We thank you for joining us tonight. In closing, we want to say that we hope that we have been informative, throughout the year. To our listeners, we hope that we have encouraged you, inspired you to get involved with this political process, because, our position here is soluble, as we've stated. There's no time for finger pointing. It's outdated. It should be a thing of the past. We have to, get involved, make our voices heard, and create a majority that we can support, that brings about change in America for the American people, regardless of race, creed, or color, and that, is a good example for the world going forward. That's where we're at in closing out one year and heading into another year. So we ask you to, hold that thought, and until we meet again. This is Soluble. Wishing you a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. We asking everyone to stay safe, celebrate responsibly, enjoy friends and family, loved ones. And until we meet again, the question is, to be or not to be a functioning democracy. That is the question. Going into, going into the year 2024. Are we going to rock the vote and move America forward? Or are we going to sit on the sidelines, not come out, and turn back the hands of time? We're only, 247 years in. And now more than ever is a time for forward thinking. Forward thinking solutions that, is going to make life better for us, our livelihoods better, the world a better place, the environment a better place when it comes to pollution, when it comes to climate change. All this is on the ballot. And so our mission here at Soluble is to continue to bring you facts. We welcome all opinions. We welcome all, points of view, because that's what makes us great as a country. When, we have this think tank, if you will, of intellectuals who are making their voices heard. And, once all those voices are put into the same room, we come up with something that works for each and every individual in America, regardless of race, creed, or color, regardless of political affiliation. That is our goal. That is our mission, to help bring forth common sense solutions in our daily politics, ending gridlock, ending partisanship and bickering, and, helping create a state of being where our politicians get back to working across the aisles, compromising, give and take, the way it used to be, and that way always got things done. You may not have gotten everything that you wanted, but you got something. And, at the end of the day, when it all came out in the wash, it was great for America and the American people. Until we meet again, this is Soluble signing off. We thank you for joining us. We ask you to continue to celebrate wisely, enjoy family, enjoy your loved ones, and 'tis the season. 'Tis the season. So until we meet again, this is Soluble signing off. We thank you for joining us. And until we meet again, this is Soluble signing off. Thank you for joining us. God bless and good night. Until we meet again, celebrate responsibly, know what's at stake, and we'll begin to debate the issue soon enough as far as if we're going to move America forward or if we're going to remain at a standstill and or go back. All forward thinkers, all of those, of voting age, of voting conscious to the front to save democracy and, keep America number one. We may not always agree, but at the end of the day, we come up with common sense solutions that are good for everyone, regardless of political stripe. Until we meet again, this is Saul. You were signing off. Thank you for joining us. God bless and good night. Thank you.